This is the final morning call for Air Canada.
Welcome again. Yeah, I'm so excited. Next Sunday, we get to do a family service. We're just going to do one, 10 a.m. We got Zeb. If you don't know Zeb, Zeb's a big barbecue guy. We got multiple Blackstones out here next week in the back. Food to eat for everybody, and it's going to be a time for our whole entire church, both services, all of our kids to get in under one roof, literally out there underneath for the basketball courts to just have a good time together. But today, I'm excited. I'm excited to be back. Last week, I took my very first Sunday off since we have launched the church, and it was an amazing time. It was an amazing vacation, and I'll be honest with you, I didn't spend it resting on the beach. I did a half Ironman last weekend, and it was an absolute blast. I did not die. I am here. Come on. I really was worried a couple times. I was like, I might not make it. But Pastor Alexio, a good friend of mine, man, did a really amazing job last week. I watched the message back. I heard from so many people that he just did a great job in this series, Pack the Essentials, talking about God's provision and how the God of the universe provides for us in a way that is unique and that he shows up every step of the way. But this morning, I'm excited. We're going to be closing up this series, Pack the Essentials. This is our last week in this series where we're going to be covering a topic that I'll just be honest with you, your pastor does a really terrible job at doing. We're going to be talking about rest this morning. We're going to be talking a little bit about the Sabbath this morning. And I share that with you because I think oftentimes people can think that because I'm up here talking about these things that I got it all figured out, that I have all the answers. And I'll just say this, if you ever think that, just ask my wife. She will be very clear. I am full of sin and brokenness, okay? But in reality, this is a topic that I don't necessarily do super well. I don't rest very well. And my assumption would be this, is that most of us in the room, this topic around rest, we probably don't excel and we probably don't thrive in this area. Let me start here this morning. Let me ask a couple questions. When was the last time that you felt truly rested? Like whole body, your soul, your mind. Man, when was the last time that you felt rested? Have you ever taken a day off and then been like, I need another one to just like rest from my day off? Have you ever been there? Let me ask this, what do you run to when life is overwhelming and exhausting? What is the thing that you go to for rest? See, this last week, I was telling you I was on vacation. I took Tuesday through Tuesday of this week off, and it was Wednesday morning, the second day of my vacation, and I texted Larissa, our worship pastor, at about 8 in the morning, 7:30 in the morning. I said, hey, are you going to be in the office today? And she's like, yes, I'm working. You're on vacation. And I'm like, okay, do you have time to meet around noon? I have a few meetings. I'll be in the office for a little bit. She goes, aren't you on vacation? And I'm like, yes, but not really. Like, I'm not very good at this thing called rest. Even on my vacations, I struggle to slow down. See, my assumption is that a lot of us in this room, this is something we struggle with as well. I was reading some studies this week about rest, about sleep, and I found some very interesting things. And thinking about sleep and what disrupts our sleep, I found that 74% of people report that they experience disrupted sleep due to the stress that they are under. 74% of us. 68% we experience disrupted sleep due to anxiety. 55% due to depression. It showed that 46% of adults have lost sleep over an election, 81% over finances, 57% over job security, 54% over the global conflicts in our world. And that only 26% of Americans say that they get the recommended 8 hours of sleep. Now, I understand this. I have young kids. I know that it is not realistic for me in this season of my life to get the recommended 8 hours of sleep, but when I get it, praise God, like He is real. Amen. Man, we need rest. You see, we live in a world of convenience. We live in a world where tech is taking over and it's allowing us to be more efficient than we've ever been able to be history of the world, but it seems as if we are just as exhausted, just as tired, and we don't experience rest in the way in which we probably should. This week I was reading some old like magazine articles from the 1920s to see what they thought the world would look like about 100 years later, and it was interesting. I'm going to read a few of them to you. The first one is from the Science and Invention magazine of 1922, and it says, "There will be no need for a postal service. Everything will be sent by wireless telephone." And it's like, that's true, but we still use the postal service. Another one, and this is the one that I think is the most interesting. It says, "The problem of the future will not be too little work, but too much leisure." How many of you know that's not actually true? That even in a world where we have convenience at our fingertips, we have technology that speeds things up for us in a way that makes things easier, we find ourselves more anxious, more moving at 1,000,000 miles an hour than we ever have been, and we still struggle with this idea of rest. You see, and I think the real reason why we struggle with this is we are actually trying to prove ourselves to the people around us. That even though we have these things at our fingertips that make us more efficient, we just take the time that we've gained and we fill it with other things to prove ourselves maybe to other people. Maybe sometimes it's even to prove ourselves to God. And honestly, to myself, sometimes it's to prove myself to me, to that voice in my head that says, "You're not enough." That voice in my head that says, "You know what, you're never gonna do the thing that you set out to do." It's proving myself wrong. See, but we all still find ourselves in a place where we don't experience rest in the way that we probably should. And I think the reason is this, and I'll just say for me, I'm included in this conversation. It's because we don't know how to rest. Like, we think rest is simply sitting on the couch and just scrolling through our phones and taking some time off, and we think that we will leave more rested, when in reality that is not the case. You see, I found there's this new term called bed rotting. Have you ever heard of this term? Bed rotting. Okay, Jacob has heard of the term bed rotting. It said, I read this, in 2025, the average American does 364 hours a year, 15 full days of just bed rotting. They just lay in their bed or on the couch and just scroll their phone. Out of Gen Z, it's 498 hours, approximately 21 days. We think these are the things that will provide us rest, but we find ourselves more exhausted, more tired than we have ever been. See, this morning, I want to encourage us and remind us that wherever you find yourself this morning, whether you feel like you're moving 1,000,000 miles an hour, or you feel like you have actually experienced some rest in this season, here's what I believe. We can all learn something from the message this morning about rest, because it's not about just waiting for the next week-long vacation and say, when I get there, then I'll be able to slow down. That's what I tend to do. I'm like, okay, I got the vacation on the calendar. I got the trip to Chelan on the calendar. And when I get there, then I'll be able to rest. See, but that's not what rest is really about. See, I think the reason why we find ourselves not experiencing rest is because we confuse distraction with restoration. We confuse, like, if I just distract myself from the busyness of my life, then when I get back to my life, I will feel restored, when really all we've done is distracted ourselves. We've gotten to the point where we have become addicted to the noise, the constant moving that is in our lives. We became addicted to it. And we don't actually know what true rest looks like. So what do we do? What do we do this morning? We're going to be jumping back into the book of Exodus that we've been for this whole entire series. And we're going to be looking at the story of the Israelites. And I'll catch you up to speed. They get freed out of slavery. They find themselves at the Red Sea. God does that amazing miracle where he parts the Red Sea and they walk through on dry ground. And then they're wandering through the wilderness. And the God of the universe provides them manna on the journey that Pastor Alexio talked about last week. And then this week, they find themselves at Mount Sinai. And Moses goes up and he receives the 10 commandments. And we're going to be talking about one of those commandments this morning. And I'm going to read Exodus chapter 20. It's in your outline. It's going to be on the screen. It says this in verse 8 through 11. It says, "Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, neither you nor your son or your daughter, nor your male or female servant, nor your animals, nor any foreign residing in your towns. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them, but he rested on the seventh day. Therefore, the Lord blessed the Sabbath and made it holy." See, nestled in between the 10 commandments where it says, man, serve only me. Serve only God. I am the only God. Do not murder. Do not steal. Do not covet. Honor your father and mother. Nestled in between all of that, God is like, hey, another important one for you to keep is, man, take a day off. Have some rest. Even the God of the universe, when he created the world, he created this rhythm of rest. This means that in the world then, in the book of Exodus, the Israelites, when they are going through the wilderness and the 10 commandments come down and they're commanded to keep the Sabbath even during that time. And I would say now as well, man, it is important for us to keep the rhythm of taking a break. Yet this is the only one of the 10 commandments that I've ever heard anyone, myself included at times, brag about breaking. So you don't hear anybody brag about stealing. You don't hear anybody bragging about murdering. You don't hear anybody bragging about anything else listed on the 10 commandments. But man, oftentimes in the world that we live in, it's easy for us to go, man, I never take a day off. I'm always working. I'm always grinding. I never rest. Man, we brag about this one. See, the Sabbath is God's antidote to our own self-sufficiency. You and I need to take a break because it is an exercise of us going, man, I trust that I can do more with God in charge than I can do on my own. It's putting God in his correct place. And for the Israelites in this moment, they are fresh out of slavery. They had been working for 400 years under the rule of Pharaoh, who is forcing them to do things. And what is going on in this story, what is going on in this moment is God is showing them that their identity is not found in their work, but rather it needs to be found in their relationship with him. But how many of you know it's hard to slow down? It's easy to ask the question, man, how will things continue? I have stuff to do. I have deadlines to keep. I have people relying on me. How am I supposed to stop? I'm supposed to slow down. See, this morning I want to give us 3 ways to find rest on the journey. I want to give us 3 ways to find rest on the journey. My first point, you can write this down, is you got to rest your whole self intentionally. You got to rest your whole self intentionally. That it's not just about waiting for the next vacation. It's not about just waiting for the next day off. It's not about just having some time that you can sit on the couch and chill and watch a show that you don't really want your friends to know that you're super into, but you are. It's not about that kind of rest. It's about resting your whole self intentionally. In Exodus chapter 20, verse 9 through 10, it says, 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. But the seventh day is the Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work. You see that phrase, Sabbath, is literally translated to stop. That you and I, to keep the Sabbath, is for us to literally stop what we are doing. From our work that we do on a weekly basis, it's a moment and a rhythm for us to stop and to trust that we can do more with 6 days when we're rested than 7 when we are exhausted. I don't know about you, but this is a hard thing for me to do. Get ready. I got a bunch of triathlon illustrations today, and probably for the next few weeks. So just get ready. As I was getting ready for this race, it's the first time I've ever done this. I was training, and I'm following this training plan that I didn't pay for. I just me and ChatGPT, we made it, and so it worked pretty well. And I was getting ready for this race, and as I was getting closer to this race, there's this thing called a taper that you're supposed to do. This taper phase right before the race, and everything in my mind, I'm like, I don't want to lose out on any of the work that I've been doing the last few months, because this taper phase is really, you're supposed to ramp down your training. You're supposed to rest more and trust that will be the thing that makes you ready for your race. And I remember a few weeks leading in, I was like, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to keep on pushing. And I found myself really tired. And towards the end, I was like, you know what? I need to take a rest. You see, and I think oftentimes in our lives, we think that if we just keep on pushing, if we just keep on going when we are tired, if we just keep on grinding, it'll all figure itself out, when in reality, all of us, no matter what we do for a living, no matter if we are in school or we have a corporate job or a physical labor type of job, man, we need to take time to rest. We need to take time to slow down. We can't be in the constant tension of work constantly. See, I'll be honest, I'm not very good at this. There's been other seasons in my life that I was a lot worse, where I never took a day off. Now I'm getting okay at it. But I'll be honest, this last week I was convicted that I haven't been doing it very well recently. See, here's what I've found for myself. In my own schedule and the way that things work for me, I have a hard time taking a full day to just be completely off. What I mean by that is it's really hard for me to go, okay, every single Friday, I'm going to be completely shut off. I get Fridays and Saturdays off at the church, or I'm going to take all of Saturday off no matter what. This is a hard rule. You see, it's hard for me because how many of you know things just come up? Things pop up in the middle of the week. Things pop up that you need to take care of, and it's hard to have this hard line of, man, only Fridays, I'm never going to work. And so here's what I've done. This is what works for me in my schedule, and I share this with you to give you freedom to figure how it works in your life. The way that I do it is Friday mornings, it's a day off for me, but I like to get some work done. I like to get some things that kind of lingered throughout the week, and so I work on Friday morning, and then about Friday afternoon around 1 o'clock, I completely shut off until Saturday afternoon around 1 o'clock. I take a 24-hour window where I rest, and the reason why is because on Fridays in the morning, I like to kind of tighten some things up from the work week, getting ready for the weekend, and then on Saturday nights, after I've hung out with the kids and we've had the family day and all the thing, I like to slow down, get in my office at the house, and I like to revisit my message so I feel fresh going into Sunday morning. And it's just the way that it works for me. And why do I share that with you? I share that with you because I think it's important for all of us when it comes to this topic of rest to really have an honest conversation to go, you know what? I can do this. The question is, how do I fit it into the rhythm of my life? And if you're anything like me, if it's not in your calendar, you probably won't do it. Anybody like this? If it's not in my calendar, it does not exist. If I don't have something scheduled out, something else will fill that slot. So I think if this is something that is hard for you, if you struggle to keep this rhythm, if you struggle to intentionally rest, maybe it's something that you need to put in your calendar. You got to rest your whole self intentionally. My second point, you can write this down, is you got to refresh your soul by connecting with God. You got to refresh your soul by connecting with God. Here's what I've experienced is that you can take a day off and feel physically rested, but not refreshed. You can take a day off and you can be rested from your labor and you can feel better physically, but not leave refreshed if you do not spend intentional time connecting with God. I remember a handful of years ago when I was kind of first became a follower of Jesus, and someone brought up this idea of fasting, where you don't eat food and you depend on God for a certain amount of time, and you spend some time intentionally in prayer. And I remember the very first time I was ever gonna fast, I was like, okay, I'm gonna do a 3-day fast, no food, just water and black coffee, because I can't stop having coffee, you know? And I remember specifically, I spent that whole entire 3-day fast binge watching Netflix and scrolling my phone. And I'm like, I did it. I did the fast. And I felt nowhere closer to God. And I share that with you because I thought that I was gonna get the benefit by doing the physical thing, but I didn't do the spiritual part of it. What is supposed to happen is when you are hungry, you lean into God. When you feel that hunger, it is a reminder of your dependence on the God of the universe. You see, and I think oftentimes when we choose to rest, when we take maybe a Sabbath per se, we can do it and we can fill it with things that are fun and that fill us up and we enjoy doing and they are refreshing, but we don't leave spiritually refreshed because we haven't spent intentional time connecting with God. It's the most important piece. That sure, you can take a day off and never feel refreshed if you don't spend time with God. In Genesis chapter 2, verse 2 through 3, it says, by the seventh day, God had finished the work he had been doing. So on the seventh day, he rested from all his work. Then God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it he rested from all the work of creating that he had done. See, what I love about this is it's a moment that we see that this was something from the very beginning. This wasn't something that God just introduced to the Israelites in the book of Exodus. This was a rhythm that he put in his life as well. It is a rhythm that is needed. See, but here's the reason why I think oftentimes we don't like to do this. We don't like to admit that we need help. Like, if we're honest, we don't like to admit that we can't do this thing on our own. We don't like to admit that we need help. I had this experience this last week on my triathlon where I felt like, you know what, I don't need any help. I was getting prepared. And the night before, you're like getting all your stuff organized, and you have your swim stuff, and then your bike stuff, and then your running stuff, and you got to make sure you have it all because you can't get any help from like your friends and family when they're there. So if I would have forgot like my running shoes, I would have just had to run barefoot. It would have been terrible. Like, you can't have help from other people, and so you got to like bring your own nutrition along the way, like electrolyte drinks and all of these sort of things. And so I was really intentional about all of these things. I put it all out. I had a sheet of paper of everything that I needed, a checklist, and I organized it all. And I made it so I'm like, I want to be self-sufficient on this whole entire course. I don't want to stop for an aid station. I don't want to kill time by doing that. And so I had like 4 bottles of water on my bike. I had a running vest with water bottles and electrolytes and snacks, you know, because I'm a big dude, like I need food. And I told myself I wasn't going to stop. And it was about mile 4 or 5 on the run that I was like, okay, I need some help. I can't do it on my own. I didn't prepare enough. And I think in our lives, we have a tendency to run at a pace where we think we can do it all on our own, but there is gonna be a day coming, it might not be right now, where you hit a roadblock, where you hit a wall and you're gonna say, you know what, I need some help. And I think oftentimes we can avoid that moment if we would just simply start the rhythm of taking some time for rest and saying, God, would you be the one that works on my behalf? Would you be the one that fills me up? God, would you be the one that steps in my story and in my situation? See, Eugene Peterson, talking about the Sabbath, he says this, he says, the Sabbath is that uncluttered time and space in which we can distance ourselves from our own activities enough to see what God is doing. It's not about doing absolutely nothing. What it is about is uncluttering everything in our hearts, in our minds, in our lives, so we can see that God is working on our behalf. When we have a tendency to keep our lives busy, keep our lives cluttered, and we wonder where God is and we can't see him because everything is so cluttered around us. And we got to slow down enough to see that God is moving on our behalf. My third and final point, you can write this down, is you got to replenish your spirit with things that fill your cup. You got to replenish your spirit with things that fill your cup. In Mark chapter 2, verse 27 through 28, Jesus says, then he said to them, the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. So the Son of Man is the Lord even of the Sabbath. See, what's going on in this story is Jesus is speaking to the Pharisees and the Sadducees in this moment, and they're getting frustrated with Jesus that he is healing the sick on the Sabbath. He is doing these things on the Sabbath, and they're like, you're not keeping the law. You're not doing what you're supposed to do. You're not keeping the rigid law that you're supposed to keep. And Jesus goes, no. The Sabbath was made for man, not the other way around. In other words, the God of the universe put this in place for you and I so that we could experience rest that is only found in him. And this point that we have to replenish ourselves with things that fill our cup is, I think, we got to find what those things are for us. That it's not just sitting alone in your prayer closet for 24 hours and just praying. Like, you got to find things in your life that fill your cup. And so I think oftentimes in the church, the question is, well, does the Sabbath still apply to us today? Like, do we have to follow it religiously today? And I think to answer that question, the answer is yes and no. No, in the sense that it's not a religious obligation, in that Jesus says, I am your rest. That when we are in relationship with him, when we are in pursuit of a daily relationship with him, and we experience the rest that can only come with him. But yes, in the sense that it still holds value. That when we take the time to rest in him, man, there is value there. And so my question for you this morning is, what fills your cup? What is something that you love to do? What is something that when you do, you lose track of time and you feel refreshed when you leave it? What is that thing for you? Maybe it's going on a hike. Maybe it's taking a nap for the glory of God on a Sunday afternoon. Maybe it's every once in a while with your spouse just splurging on a bougie dinner with the perfectly medium rare cooked ribeye, and you remember how good God is in that steak. Like, maybe it's those things. For me, something that's been so interesting for me to learn in this last season is that the way that I rest oftentimes is by doing something physical. My job, 90% of what I do is sitting, having conversations with people, sitting, using my mind, thinking, how can we do things, studying so that I can prepare for sermons. A lot of my job is mental. And what I've found is that because I am working my mind so much, the way that I rest the best, the way that I rest my mind is by working my body. You see, and I don't have any stats to back this up. I don't have any data. This could be completely wrong, but this is just my opinion, so just hear this. I think if you spend your whole entire day working with your mind, a good way for you to rest is to actually work your body. And I think vice versa is true. If you spend your whole entire day working your body, I think a way that you can rest is by resting your body and working your mind. Because it's the opposite. It allows the thing that you do on a constant basis to be rested, and it allows you to work and fill yourself up in a different way. And so I guess my question for you this morning, as you think about your life, as you think about your journey, man, what fills your soul? What fills your cup? Not just what fills your calendar, but what can you intentionally do on a weekly basis that fills your cup? Because what we do when we intentionally rest, when we say, I'm gonna take a 24-hour period, I'm gonna intentionally stop what I normally do, and spend some intentional time with God and allow him to step in, what we are learning is dependence. We're allowing dependence on God and seeing him be a provider and work on our behalf where we are choosing not to work. In Psalm 46, verse 10, it says, "Be still and know that I am God." See, I don't think that is unintentional. That we are to be still to know that he is God, because we got to slow down enough to see him moving and working on our behalf. See, this morning, my encouragement for you is this, as I close the message, is to think about your week, to think about your schedule. I want to challenge you this week, church, to find a 24-hour period. I don't know your life. I don't know your schedule. I don't know what you are responsible for. You're probably responsible for way more than I am. But find yourself a 24-hour window to just rest and to do something that fills your cup and to spend some time connecting with God and see how you can accomplish so much more with 6 days of work and 1 day of trusting that God is working on your behalf rather than you trying to do it all on your own. Would you bow your heads with me as I pray? Heavenly Father, I lift up those in this room, God, that maybe struggle with this like me. Feeling the weight of the world on their shoulders, to have to keep on going, to have to keep on grinding, to have to keep on doing all of the things, to keep all of the plates spinning. God, I pray that you would just meet them here in this moment and let them know that it's okay to rest and that, God, you actually encourage and challenge us to. God, I pray this week as we take this faith step to trust that as we rest, you will show up on our behalf. God, I pray that you would fill us up in a way, you would replenish us in a way that we have never experienced. God, I pray that you would use the ancient rhythm of a Sabbath to be something that fills us up with joy, fills us up with peace, fills us up with energy so that we can do what you've called us to do every other day of the week. God, we love you. God, we praise you. And God, we lift it all up to you. It's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Amen. Hey, in just a moment, we're gonna sing one more song. And so I just want to invite you to stand to your feet. And I want to remind you that in the back of the room, every single week, we have a vetted prayer team member that would love to pray with you. And so if there is anything that you just want to bring before God, that you just want to say, you know what, I want someone to partner with me in prayer, it's completely confidential. We will keep it within a small group of our prayer team just so we can be lifting you up in prayer. And so let's sing together, church. Let's worship Jesus. Let's celebrate what he's done for us.
This is the final morning